Hello, you lovely lot, and welcome back to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I am your host, as always, Josh Carr, and it's quite a big one this week. I'm not going to lie to you, to all my listeners at home, quite a big one. I'm very, very, very excited to say that I am joined by a very special guest, one of the finest writers that Britain has ever produced. Who has worked on some of the finest TV shows this country has ever produced, going back to Life on Mars, Broadchurch, and of course, Torchwood and Doctor Who, and up until fairly recently, in the grand scheme of things, the showrunner of Doctor Who. I'm joined by the one and only Chris Chibnall. Chris, how are you, first of all?
I'm good, thank you. I'm all the better for that introduction. That's really that's very nice of you.
I mean every single word of it, because it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. People who've been listening to the show for a long time will know that I've mentioned you in name when people have asked me about who would be a dream guest, and
the pressure's on, Josh.
Well, you've got to deliver now.
Yeah, well, I really do. Got to bring my A game.
Got to bring the A game. But no, it's like I said, when I announced this sort of a week or so ago, my phone went mental. Because
nice.
I mean, by far and away, the largest response and the most amount of questions and everything that I've ever had for a guest announcement before, and everybody's so excited to hear this. But special guest, but same old podcast. I'm going to start where I always start, which is at the very start.
Yeah.
Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Where did it begin for you? What are your earliest Doctor Who memories? Because obviously you've been a fan all your life, as you said. Yeah. So where did it really begin? Where did it latch on, like it does with everybody?
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? It began with episode 1 of The Time Warrior. Really clearly. And I'm born in 1970. I think The Time Warrior goes out 1973, I think. I haven't actually checked.
They're really young.
Really young. Shouldn't have been watching it. I remember, I think it was just on in our house, in the corner of the room. And I remember watching it. And I remember the cliffhanger of the Sontaran taking off his helmet. And I also remember discussing it the next day with my great aunt. And really specific that she'd watched as well, and it was like, and so I can date it to that. And then I have other memories of the Sea Devils and the Green Death, which I think must have been, because I've looked into this, omnibus repeats over the Christmas between John Pertwee and Tom Baker. So I think that, and it used to be at Christmas in our house. It's just the TV would just be on all the time in the corner. So I think, so I must have seen those then. And that took me a while to figure out the chronology of that, because I think I was too young to see the Sea Devils, but I remember them coming out the feed. So I must have seen the omnibus of that, which is really phenomenal. So really from there, I remember those early Tom Baker seasons so clearly, so profoundly, in terms of the show getting its hooks into me. And then I was then in sort of my teenage years, I was, as has been pretty well documented and put up on YouTube, I was a member of the Merseyside local group. Just had when the show was cancelled or paused or whatever we call it now in retrospect, I found that local group because I was needing a fix for my addiction that had been paused. Found some really great people there. We used to go to monthly meetings in hotels in Liverpool and watch scratchy old VHSs of old episodes before you could get them on VHS or DVD, and made some really great friendships there. Laughed more than I've ever laughed in my life, in the way that you do with your fellow fan mates. And then I went to university, and then sort of felt I was only in the sort of connected fandom a couple of years really, and that sort of 15 to 18, 19, and then really when I went to uni and I did drama, sort of drama took over, so that's where it embedded in me. So it's only been there forever, and the likelihood of ending up as showrunner of the thing that has got its claws into you when you are 3 is so minuscule, isn't it? It's really incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it's fantastic because obviously really, there's only 3 people on planet Earth who've truly experienced that, and in terms of being a fan from sort of such early years, and then leading the show into new eras and new places. I mean, in terms of you mentioned there when you went to university, you did drama.
Yeah.
So was the initial goal, was it acting? Was that what you were interested in?
I wasn't sure, to be honest. When I was at school doing O-levels and A-levels, I did O-levels. That's how old I am now. I quite fancy being a journalist. I thought that might be interesting. Then acting, I acted in the school plays, and I was in a band that we played at our school in Formby. Played Gregory and Gregory's Girl in a school production. And that was what my school teacher, that's sort of, they said, you should think about drama. You could do drama as a degree. And I didn't know that. And so going to university and doing drama, what was amazing about it was a course where you did a bit of everything. You did a bit of stage managing, some acting, some lighting, sound, all sorts of things, directing. And I loved all of it, really. But during that period, in fact, in the summer between when I did my A-levels and went to university, I wrote a short play, which then got taken up by Contact Theatre for its Young Playwrights Festival. And as part of that, I got to be in a rehearsal room with 3 actors and a director for a morning, hearing this play read out. First time I'd written anything really, any sort of drama or anything like that. Play was read out. The director gave some thoughts to put it on its feet, and it was just the most incredible thing of just being in a room with people speaking aloud and workshopping stuff. And that was the morning that ruined me forever in not wanting to do any other job, because I was like, well, imagine if you could do that with your life. And it was another 10 years before I got paid to write anything ever. But really, it had such a profound effect on me that day. And the play was done as part of the festival as well, and that was great. But really, it was that morning workshop. We thought, oh, this is a thing. Like, this could be a job, and this is what it feels like. And that thing of collaboration is something I've always loved.
And has Doctor Who in particular always been sort of an inspiration in your writing? Because I know I've listened to you speak before as well about, sort of Doctor Who being there very early, but Agatha Christie as well, and obviously 2 things that the who done it and who being very key in your work. Was that there from sort of the beginning, or did sort of the Doctor Who thing fade away and then they sort of crossed paths later in life?
Well, so it's an interesting question. I think for me, Agatha Christie and reading all the Christies coincides with my very early teenage years. I would take a Christie out of the library from Formby Library. Thank you, Formby Library. Every week a new Christie, and read one and then go on to the next one. And I remember even getting like large print Christie's out, because they were the only ones where they had those editions. So like for older people with failing eyesight, I was like 12 taking these books out because they're so addictive. They're so brilliantly structured. They're so great at being page turning. So that was very formative in my reading. So I'm really reading Christie and Terence Dicks and those novelizations during that period. Yeah, really formative. And then I mean, I don't know if Doctor Who stops. That's the truth of it, and doesn't come back. It comes back briefly for the McGann movie in '96, but there's basically that, whatever it is, 15, 17 year period where it's just not around, and it doesn't ever look like it's coming back. So it doesn't really factor in your thinking. You just think, that's a shame it's not on.
Yeah, and then obviously fast forward, I mean, very, very fitting that we're speaking this week of all weeks, because in a couple of days' time, as we're recording this, it's 20 years since Doctor Who came back to screens. The big 20th anniversary. What was your awareness like of that? And was it, when the show came back, did it become sort of was it a mission of I need to get on there. I need to do this because now, you know, you're starting to write. Obviously, I know you were working on Life on Mars as well. It was around the time that Doctor Who was coming back in the sort of the year after or so. Was that sort of a mission, or was it something where you thought, I don't think that's ever going to happen?
It wasn't really at the forefront of my mind. I mean, I was working within the BBC at that time. My very first show, Born and Bred, which was a Sunday night drama, was on during that period. I was really aware of everything that was going on. But it was less that. The thing I felt about when the show came back was I had my now eldest son was born in 2003, and it was actually, oh my God, I get to watch Doctor Who with my son, get to introduce Doctor Who to my son. Again, probably too early, to be honest, you know, probably round about the age when I started watching.
That you started, because it's just, I was doing the maths in my head, it was about the same age. So.
It's just not right. But having that joy was amazing. And then, I worked on Life on Mars, which was just the most incredible fun and a really great job to be working on. And then from that, Julie Gardner was an exec on Life on Mars, and I remember getting a text from her. I think it said something like, or an email from her afterwards, going, "Can we meet? I have a glint in the corner of my eye," and which is like all great producers know how to entice writers into a meeting. It's a good one. And then she sat down and went, "We're going to be doing a post-Watershed show with Captain Jack at its heart. Do you want to do it?"
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What on earth is that? I couldn't really imagine it. I didn't. It was less. I just loved the fact it was back, and I loved the show. So it was much more that.
Yeah. And then obviously you mentioned it there, Torchwood.
Yeah.
Was massive. It was perfect for its time. Really, in a time where Doctor Who was coming in, sort of inspired by what had gone before it in terms of Buffy and shows like that, and drawing in this sort of adult and young adult audience. I mean, I'm going to be entirely honest with you. You say about watching Doctor Who too young. I must have been way too young to be watching Torchwood, but I was absolutely
guys.
Well, no, I mean, I have memories of watching Children of Earth and knowing everything that was going on. So I'd obviously seen the first two series, but when Children of Earth went out, I was 13, so I was definitely too young to have seen all of that. But
but that's a perfect age. I think 13.
It's a great age. It's a great age to be sneaking just under.
Yeah, because you want to be watching the forbidden stuff, don't you? Watching stuff that sort of for 17, 18-year-olds and up, and going, oh, what is this world? How are people making sense of it? Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it was big. It was very controversial in terms of that's my abiding memory of it. It was like we were just doing things and trying things, and there was just such a sense of experimentalism, particularly in the first season, because Ross was like, we're just going to try things. We're going to do 13 different types of stories and see what works, and we're going to have fun with it. And that was the really abiding thing, particularly with the first season, and it was made so fast. We I feel like we must have filmed it and been on air within 9 months, and now it takes 2 to 3 years to make a season of television. It's but there was such energy around Cardiff, around Doctor Who, and just the base there. It was fabulous,
and sort of spearheading that one of the three figureheads of the trident of sort of late noughties Doctor Who, of obviously Doctor Who, Torchwood, and Sarah Jane.
Yeah.
Was it fun to sort of be given the world of Doctor Who, but a very much a different kind of sandpit to play around in? Was it exciting to be like you said, controversial and almost taboo, just to be like, oh, this stuff can't happen in Doctor Who. There's no swearing and there's no sex and drugs in Doctor Who, but you sort of get to take something that you've known since you were a child and sort of jazz it up a bit. What was that like, sort of developing Torchwood and being able to play in that world?
Well, it was exciting, it was scary, it was hard work because it was fast and we did a lot of episodes. Everybody was writing at the same time. Russell was also obviously showrunning Doctor Who, so there was a sense of there was a really sort of creative frenzy going on, really. So it was really great. The interesting with Torchwood was you couldn't use the same short story shapes as Doctor Who. So although it's connected to Doctor Who, it doesn't really share any DNA whatsoever.
Yeah.
Other than Captain Jack moves between the two shows, but really they're not the same narratives, and you don't have that the figure of the Doctor, which is defining of Doctor Who, obviously isn't in Torchwood.
Yeah.
Captain Jack performs not quite a similar function. It's much more Eve Miles' story, really, and then the gang around her. But so you were trying to decode what it was and what Russell was wanting to create, but he was also very clear that he wanted very different stories week in, week out, particularly in that first season. And so is it about objects that come through the rift? Is it about people? Is it about the effect on things? Is it about aliens? Is it about a meteorite in the sky and that classic Doctor Who trope? It was just, my memory is lots of things going on, trying lots of things. Some things didn't work, some things did. And then figuring out how to make it and how to make it on a budget that was not Doctor Who's. And all of those things. So it was very exciting, but it was really all hours of the day exhausting.
Yeah. Wow. And how does it compare then sort of shifting into writing for Doctor Who? Because obviously you come into the sort of the main world with 42 in 2007, and then you continue to write for the show sort of for the next five or so years, with a few episodes here and there under two different showrunners as well. I mean, what was it like, obviously working with Russell and Stephen, and what were sort of the main differences across those two eras? Was there anything that was like, oh, this is different to when I did 42, when you came back for Moffat's era?
I mean, there's a difference in personality. Definitely, you can see how they're different in terms of how they are, but they're both incredibly creative, incredibly smart, incredibly welcoming, incredibly generous. With 42, we had such a small window of time to do that, and it got pulled up. A lot of the episodes that I wrote early on, I would just be writing them, and they would go, oh, somebody would call me and go, oh, it's actually good. We're gonna have to film it 8 weeks sooner than we said. And I'm like, well, we only have 14 weeks total. And it's like, power of 3 as well. I remember getting a call when I was away on holiday going, it's actually, I got the dates wrong, and it's actually 6 weeks time instead of 4 months time. I was like, what? So a lot of my memory of those early episodes is like scheduling things but I think it was, I feel like the with 42 and like the Hungry Earth, they were similar in that Russell would give you a brief. I know people have talked about shocking lists as briefing for writers and stuff in Russell's era, and it was relatively true for 42, where it was like, okay, it's these components, find a way. And also it was like we talked about a different story actually to begin with. When I was going to write an episode of that season, it was going to be a sequel to Satan Pit and have Zach and I'd have Ood in, and then it ended up they'd spent the money, and it was like, okay, and this is going to be on a spaceship. There's going to be a lot. It needs to be a lot of pages in corridors and a lot of running up and down corridors. Literally part of the brief. When I came back, we sort of had a conversation before I started working on Torchwood, and then, or in the middle of it, and then afterwards, and then the afterwards was like, this is what it's going to be: a spaceship, and it's falling into the sun. And so it was very prescriptive, but in a good way, and it needed to be. And we found the real time thing going through. It was a note from Russell going, I just think that'll pull us through and make it feel a bit special. And so you very much writing toward it. And then going on to Hungry Earth, it was much more. I remember Piers, Wenger, and Stephen taking me out for a drink and handing me an action figure of a sea devil actually, and just going, it's we're going to bring back the Silurians. Would you like to do it? So that was exciting. And then it's like, what is it, and where would it be set, and all that kind of stuff. So they're different because they're different people, but you're really always trying to do the same thing, I think. But very exciting times. Obviously, with 42, you're at the height of David's powers and his popularity, and the show is amazing, and to be around it all is fabulous. And then working on Matt Smith's first season was just, oh, what is this? This is new, and it's not like the thing before, except it is. And I remember watching early rushes of him doing his early scenes and seeing some of those cuts that got sent to us when we were writing on it, and just the thrill of going, oh, what an amazing Doctor. So it was never not exciting on Doctor Who. It is never not exciting on Doctor Who.
Yeah, I can imagine. And one thing that strikes me, because I rewatched a lot of your stories in preparation for this, you know, any excuse, I just call it research, just to rewatch Doctor Who, you know, nice. Just get away with it. But I rewatched all of those early stories, obviously from before you became showrunner, and I'd never really watched them in that order of just the writer's work. And it struck me that you sort of trusted with some. I mean, there's always big moments in Doctor Who, but you trusted with some quite big moments and some character introductions that have sort of stayed with the show. I mean, the ones that stick out, like 42 is almost Martha's true first companion episode, because you've got this will they won't they sort of dynamic. Yes. And
that was not your brief. Now you say that, I remember that.
Yeah, and then the Silurians coming back, Rory's death, obviously, in that episode as well, is a massive part of the series arc. And then you've got introductions. We had a lot of correspondence about Brian Williams. People love Brian Williams.
Oh, I love Brian Williams, and isn't
we all love Brian?
And I love, and that was, that was. I think, I wish. I mean, my memory's going to be a bit off. I've done a lot of episodes now, and it's a long time back. But I really wanted to. I think I wanted to use him in Dinosaurs, and then he got sort of retconned in elsewhere, but he's gorgeous to write.
And Kate Stewart, of course, as well, who is still in the show to this day. You know,
it's amazing.
12 years on, 13 years on, really.
I know. It's fabulous, that, and really great and just the golden thread going back to the Brigadier is just really potent. But watching the last season, I was like, oh, he's killing her. He's finally killing her. Oh, it's okay. I would be texting Russell going, oh, I thought she'd gone. Now she's back.
Yeah. Do you think those being given sort of those kinds of moments to deal with, alongside, obviously, you know, your work on Torchwood is really where you're struggling to think of a better word other than reared as a potential future showrunner in some ways.
Farm reared salmon.
But but did you take anything from obviously working with Russell and Stephen into your approach of showrunning, or was it very much this has got to be a clean slate, I've got to do this all my own way regardless of what's come before?
Well, I think there's a couple of things there. I think in terms of bringing stuff in, my memory is I requested Unit for the Power of Three, and then thought, oh, but who's going to be in charge of Unit? And I said, but a scientific. And then you could bring the thing to the Brigadier. And I remember thinking of the Brigadier's wife from Battlefield, thinking, oh, who is their daughter? You know, and that was so that felt really cool. And I just said, can I have Unit in that story? And I'm like, yeah, sure. In terms of show running, I mean, you observe lots of things, and I think you can only ever be the showrunner you are. And I do with my company now, I do a showrunner training program for writers who are coming up in the industry.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And part of that is talking about, well, what is that job? And people do it differently, and some people do certain aspects, some people do others. And so it's very much the way you showrun often corresponds to how you like to work as a writer and a producer. And Russell and Stephen work very differently, actually. They're across slightly different things to different extents. It's like a graphic equalizer. Some people be more involved in certain aspects. Some people be more happy to let heads of departments have their heads a bit more, or it just varies. The big thing I learned, and you learn watching other showrunners work, is just how to deal with the workload, particularly on Doctor Who, how to deal with all the facets of it, and you're taking bits that you like from every showrunner, and then also doing it your own way, because you'll see things where you think, oh yeah, I don't want to I don't want to quite do it like that. Not necessarily creatively, but just sometimes in terms of processes, you think, oh, I'd like to have that a bit more, or this, or you're always, and also the show and the times you're making the show in are evolving, and how television is made evolves. So everything continually changes on Doctor Who.
Yeah. And obviously, from a showrunning point of view, when you come to Doctor Who, you've also got a lot more experience in that department from Broadchurch, which again can only describe it really as a phenomenon. I remember being around about 16 when it came out, and it's sort of becoming that time where now, rather than sitting down with the family and watching, Saturday night light entertainment and things like that, we'd watch gritty dramas, and this sort of came at the perfect time. And I loved Broadchurch. It was one of those first, like, in sort of a golden era of great British TV dramas in the 2010s. It was really my first introduction, and one of the best. Obviously that sort of took you away from Doctor Who almost for sort of a 6-year absence from it. Was that just sort of in an attempt to want to try something different and want to take on this other side that we've spoken about, the Agatha Christie side of, the whodunits and wanting to tell stories like that as well?
Yeah, there were a number of things going on. I'd stepped off Torchwood to go and do Law and Order UK for ITV, because there was a chance to bring that over and do a UK version of that for the first time they'd ever tried to do something like that. And that was my first sort of full-time show running job. And I really loved doing that. I went off then after that to do Camelot for Stars, which was a much trickier thing and didn't quite work and was very complicated in terms of the setup. And then coming back, I did a bit of Doctor Who, and yeah, but post Camelot, what I wanted to do, I wanted to do something that was my own thing, that was my own voice, and obviously it's set where I live, but I really wanted to do a piece that was both mainstream and authored, and really spoke to some of the things that were really important to me, and had a really high cinematic television level of delivery as well. So those were the things that were going on there. And yes, I was supposed to be writing episodes for other seasons for Stephen. I remember I was supposed to be doing one in Peter's first season, one in Matt's last one, and just we always got close and had story ideas and never got to do them. And then Broadchurch did become a phenomenon. I think I can say that with a fair amount of relaxation now. If you talked to me in 2015, I would never have used that word about it, but it just took on a life of its own that none of us expected. The people just talked about it everywhere. It was in the news pages of the papers instead of the culture pages or the TV pages, and stop you in the street. And it was absolutely crazy and completely unexpected. Then it enabled me to do 2 more seasons, again, sort of trying to tell stories in slightly different ways and be quite unexpected with where that show was to go, that you weren't just coming back and repeating the murder. And also I did things like the Great Train Robbery and United single films for the BBC.
United, I mean, that's one for me, which is a massive thing for me growing up. It was United, because I'm a Manchester United fan.
Well, and nobody's perfect.
Well, look, but it came out very much at a time when I was getting back into football, and after sort of rejecting it in my teenage years and as a child, because I was a bit of a nerd and I didn't feel very welcome in the world. But
yeah, same.
And I got back into the world of football, and back into Manchester United, and then this film came out, which I rewatched this morning as well in preparation for this, because I saved it for last, because it's the one that I hadn't watched it for quite some time, and it struck me just how incredible it is, and an amazing performance from David as well. Who obviously incredible performances in Broadchurch as well. United is if anyone hasn't seen it out there, it's on iPlayer now. I would urge anybody to watch it, because it's such a heartbreaking story. Obviously, the tale of the Munich air disaster and the Busby Babes, but Yeah, that was massive for me growing up. Massive.
Oh,
It
that's
was
really
one of my favorite films. Absolutely loved it. Yeah. So you worked on all of these fantastic projects for those intervening years.
yeah.
But obviously we have to start touching on your time as showrunner of
Yeah.
Doctor Who. Um, I'm intrigued because we always hear stories of doctors and how they got the call to become the Doctor. How does it work in terms of becoming the showrunner of Doctor Who? Was there a specific phone call or a conversation where they're like, we're passing you the chaos and take it and run with it? How does it work in terms of taking over a show like Doctor Who?
Gosh, it's so long ago now. It's like my memory starts to get fuzzy, so I might be an unreliable narrator. There were a couple of things. I had a dinner with Stephen at one point, and so we would often meet up or have a drink when I was doing Broadchurch, and you would go, next year will you come and do an episode? I was like, I think we might be filming. I think we might be going again, and he would be cross with me in the most lovely way, and then make the same offer. And there was one particular one where, and it must have been during Peter's era, where he was very much like, what are your plans for the next, when are you shooting and when are you doing this? And I was like, oh, that was a funny one. And then there were sort of other conversations with people like Faith at the BBC. And there was a sort of a little bit of, if there were a chance that something might be offered, how open would you be? And I was always like, well, it never really progressed beyond that, and I was always busy doing Broadchurch, and that was my priority, to be honest. And then we had dinner where Stephen basically, he took me out for dinner. Well, I think I paid, but we went to a place where we could.
Well, he was about to be unemployed, so you've got to treat.
Exactly, poor love. We went somewhere like a private members club. We could have a really private conversation. He said, look, here's the offer. This is what it is. This is what it means. How interested are you? And it was pretty much a shock. I mean, I never expected to be offered it. I never expected to write for Doctor Who. The fact that I'd done the episodes I had done was just great and really exciting, and had given me some great experiences, given like my family some great experiences.
Yeah.
Because it's like, there's nothing like, never mind sitting down with your kids to watch Doctor Who, imagine taking them on the set, and it's like that's just so cool. I remember going on the set for Power of Three to Amy and Rory's house with my eldest, and I remember Matt Smith just looking at him going, oh yes, I remember you. And I imagine the Doctor saying that to you when you were 8 years old. It was so kind. It's like, I think Marcus Wilson had teed him up, and it was just a beautiful thing. Those kind of things, those magic things that can happen on the set of Doctor Who. But yeah, so it was a proper sort of formal, you are the choice, we want this, and then you go and talk to other people. You go and talk to Charlotte Moore and the head of drama, which was, I think, Polly Hill then, before Piers had come in. So you just having all those conversations about what it might be, how it might work, all that kind of stuff. It becomes quite operationally logistical and about availability and schedules very quickly. But it's a shock. And then you also think, is it the right thing to do? And is it because it's obviously it's a really loaded job. I don't think that's any secret. It's, you're gonna, from the moment you say yes, you're gonna get flack, and you have to be really certain you want to do it. But I after thinking about it for a long while, and I literally did a pros and cons list, and the cons was very long. The pros was, it's Doctor Who, isn't it? And as you say, it's a very rare job opportunity in terms of being one of the few people on the planet who've done it, and done it in this era where it's been a really incredible time for the show. And so you start to think about the sort of stories you might want to do, and at which point you're sort of already falling down the well.
Is you just once you're confirmed to be showrunner, and sort of the keys have been in a way handed over, and then it's like, okay, now what? You've now got to come up with these ideas. I mean, how much of your first ideas would you say made it to screen, or are there things that were that were fleeting thoughts at the start, or that you got maybe even quite far into developing in your own head, that you then thought, no, let's change this?
Quite a lot of them made it to screen, to be honest.
Really?
So I would say, so if I think about that first season, like Rosa Parks was a big one. Partition was a big one. Amazon Warehouse, that was one of my big things. I was like, got to do a Doctor Who story set in an Amazon Warehouse. That feels really important that we do that. What else was there in that first season? I'm just trying to think. But Ghost Monument, actually, although in a much bigger scale. So I would say Ghost Monument's a good example of, it's the Paris to Dakar rally in space with spaceships and lots of people and things. And by the time you get it to screen, it's like you're in South Africa, but there's only 2 contestants left because you can't get the travel visas and you haven't got the budget, and so you make the most of that. But I still think I really love that idea. So yeah, I mean, quite a lot, to be honest. And then also we put together a story room with a number of really amazing writers, and they would bring their ideas as well. And so, quite a lot, to be honest.
Yeah. And obviously Jodie, we can't not speak about Jodie, who is such a fantastic, obviously you said that little story there about Matt Smith with your son. I always think about the Doctor's obviously more than a role, because you're an ambassador for this I think for years. And we've had similar stories before. I remember Douglas McKinnon saying about David Tennant on the set with his son and of the Sontaran two-parter. And I struggle to think of someone who typifies the ambassadorial role of Doctor Who more than Jodie Whittaker. My mind automatically goes to that clip that came out in COVID, and things like that. She really took to it. I mean, obviously it's unfortunately the truth of the world these days that it was always going to be a big story casting a female Doctor. Did you always know that a female Doctor was the route that you would like to take? And at what point did Jodie start aligning it with that? Where did you think Jodie could be the Doctor? She's shown me what she can do as the Doctor.
I mean, I always knew that when it came to it, then that next regeneration would be a female Doctor, and that was always a kind of a given, really. Felt like it was time. Felt like if the show hadn't done it then, I think it would have been behind the times, and we knew there was going to be a load of noise. We weren't stupid about that, but that's also all right, and it was a big list. So it was a really big list. Jodie's name was on it. The thing about Jodie that I knew was, having worked with her on Broadchurch, that she's more like the Doctor than she is like Beth Latimer, for example.
Yeah,
she played a lot of roles where she was traumatized or crying or down, but you'd see her offset, and she's witty and sharp and funny and full of energy and fizzing with ideas and a natural clown as well. And I saw her short film, which then became Adult Life Skills, or the film she did with Sononauts, and which showcased more of that as well.
I was going to say, because I remember thinking, I love Jodie's the Doctor, but that sometimes you can always pinpoint a clear role beforehand, where you're like, oh, that's the Doctor pitch almost. And then I watched Adult Life Skills and I went, oh my God, this is incredible. She's incredible in that. It's one of my all-time favorite films. But yeah, she's fantastic. Obviously she led the show for wonderfully for almost 5 years.
Just to go back as well, Josh, that's just something you were saying earlier, the ambassadorial thing. She knew that coming in, and obviously I think it's well documented. Again, I made her audition. It wasn't like, oh, here's the part of the Doctor. It's number one, it was a conversation going, do you want to be in contention for this? Do you want to be considered for it? And she went away to think about that. But when she left me a message, left me a voicemail, when she thought about it and discussed it with her family, and she said, I'm not just going to audition for it. I'm going to fight for it, because I know what this means, and I know what this will represent, and I want to represent that change, and I want to be out there representing it. And it was a really key moment in things. I mean, then she came in to do the audition, which just blew us all away, and the Doctor was just there in front of us in that magic way that can sometimes happen. but it was that her awareness of exactly what you just said. It's not just a part. You got to shoulder a lot more than that, and she had to shoulder, frankly, double. You know what her predecessors had to shoulder because of the change in gender. So but she knew it, and she was up for it, and she was up for the delight of it and the fight of it, and she brought that every day. She's also, the other thing is, she is an absolute delight to work with, and you need a doctor who's going to be there every day, knowing every single line, having worked really hard by himself and leading the company and being delightful and making it an amazing place for guest stars, guest directors, everybody to come in and have a great day at work. And that's really, really important. And she did that. And if you speak to, anybody who came and guested on our era, they will only have great things to say about it.
I've had people on the show before who've met Jodie, who've worked with Jodie. I remember Pete Levy, who was obviously a producer on Flux and was the COVID manager as well, with hell of a job to have the time. Was full of praise for Jodie and just that, like you said, what she was like on set. And she carried it off it, and she still has to this day. Like I said, that it's that thing as well, that your time on the show may end, but that ambassadorial stuff, it never really ends. You're always the doctor in people's eyes.
And she loved it. That's the thing. She didn't come into it as a fan. She was very honest about that. She just embraced it and loved it, and still loves it, and will love it for her whole life. And that spread around all of the crew, all of the cast, all of the production. And I think she's been very open about saying it's the best job she ever had or will have, because it was just a really special time.
I feel like it spread into the era as well. I mean, it was, it was obviously an era about hope and about
very nice
about change and love and family. And obviously there's that wonderful TARDIS team, especially early days, slightly larger than what we'd been used to for a while. Sort of the only thing that really echoes it is sort of 11, Rory, Amy and River, but that, River came and went. And
in the modern show, but it actually was a very deliberate attempt to go back to Hartnell and just go, this is the DNA of the show. The DNA of the show is the Doctor and Three Companions. And it was going, here's a modern version of that. What does that look like in 2018? So Graham is sort of Ian Chesterton, basically. And so that, but it was, exactly. Sorry, I interrupted you, but you're right.
No. And I loved, obviously, the concept of flat team structure comes up, and when
that's Stewie Wilder's line. The really brilliant line that just made sense. As soon as I saw that in the script, I was like, oh, that's beautiful. That's exactly who this Doctor is.
Yeah. So was it more of a conscious effort? Because obviously they're three fantastic castings. Was it a conscious effort to make it more of an ensemble for series 11? And then obviously that challenge that team structure is, because it does get challenged. You think about that moment specifically where she challenges that line in Haunted of Villa Diodati.
Yeah.
Was that a conscious decision, or was it sort of natural to you as this is the DNA of the show, this is where it has to go?
I think it was a number of things. Partly, I thought it was the DNA of the show, and it hadn't been done for a while, and been a lot of Doctor plus one companion for a while. I thought it changes it up, but also very clearly, one of the things I wanted to do was to make sure that everybody could see themselves in the show. And that whatever your background, whatever your gender, that you could hopefully see yourself, or a representation of yourself, or some character to align yourself or relate to within the show. So having Yaz and Ryan and Graham and the Doctor, and also them enjoying each other's company and really liking each other, felt really important. So I really wanted Jodie's era to feel like, here's the Doctor, here's a gang of mates, they're gonna have some adventures. Let's go. That was the aim with that.
Yeah. And then obviously, 3 series there. I'm aware you've said previously that was always the intention.
Yeah.
But obviously your flexibility in terms of your original plans was of course challenged, especially when we got to series 3 with Flux. And a lot of questions came in from listeners about, what was that original plan? Where was it going to go before Flux? But I know you've spoken previously in other interviews about it not being some sort of missing series. It sort of had to change quite early on. Obviously, COVID affected everybody in different ways. It affected the entire planet, and obviously it nearly put a massive strain and nearly ended the show in a way for at least
it was very touch and go. Very touch and go.
How do you look at it now? Obviously we're sort of 5 years removed from that. Do you look back and think Flux came out of it, it's fantastic, you know, it went down really well and people loved it? Or is there a little part of you that thinks maybe I'd do a few more episodes, maybe I'd have done it differently if we could have gone back and got rid of that and got rid of those restrictions? Or are you very much happy with how it ended up?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think the opposite. I don't feel like, that season that we didn't get to do. And there was probably a bit more flesh on the bones. I was thinking about it after I'd given an interview another time, and I was thinking, oh no, we did have a few ideas. We had some writers. There were a few things going on. It's also, you don't tend to talk about it because you never know what's going to end up in the show or what those writers are going to do with those ideas.
Yeah, of course.
It was a little bit more fleshed out, but not, like I say, it wasn't like a whole season of scripts. It was more like we were in conversations with enough writers. They had ideas. We'd started working on them. Actually, I feel the opposite. I think what the result that came out of it, where to try something new and to do a serialized Doctor Who that was also episodic, I'm really proud of those episodes. And I really love, particularly I think about Halloween Apocalypse and War of the Sontarans and Village of the Angels. I'm like, well, those are really, I'm really thrilled with them. It forced us to bring back really aggressive cliffhangers in a really great way. So that was good. And we did something that no other season of Doctor Who in the modern era has done. So it really felt like from this vantage point, I feel glad about what we did rather than thinking, oh no, we didn't get to do it, because we still got to do a lot of the emotional storytelling in terms of the Doctor's the timeless child stuff that would have been in that other season as well, in terms of playing in that sandbox of that story. So no, I mean, it's very hard to imagine now how difficult it was to make that show that year. It was so impossible. It was so difficult, even just the writing process alone. And then everybody had to go and make it, and we had to go and do post-production. And but I think some great things came out of it. Like Eve of the Daleks, which is one of my favorite scripts as well. It's like all of those things came out of the restrictions. So none of those would have been the case. So it challenged us to our core. I will never do anything more difficult than making Doctor Who in a pandemic, and nobody will ever make the show I hope, in those conditions ever again. So I think it's like, it was a massive team effort, and I think there's some stories there we wouldn't have ended up with without that happening. So no, I don't lament it. I'm really grateful we got to complete Jodie's story, because there was a period of time where that wasn't going to be the case, and BBC Studios couldn't find money, and it just got really, really difficult. And I'm really proud that we got the show on its feet, and that we were one of the early shows to do that, because it's the most complex show on British television. So to be able to make it at all, but be able to make it under those conditions, that amazing team and all those amazing testers and all those amazing crews who kept everybody safe, and Jodie, who didn't go out for a year. She just didn't. It's like her dedication and the way her and Mandip and John played all of that stuff. No, I don't lament the season that we didn't get to do. I think
you celebrate what managed to come out of something.
Yeah, and it feels like the values of Jodie's Doctor. It's like you go, okay, there's a challenge ahead. Well, we're going to meet this head on, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it together, and we're going to do it as a team.
Yeah.
So
no, that's lovely. And obviously we focused a lot there on the challenges. I've heard you speak about, obviously a lot of people always ask about the challenges, but people don't ask about how much fun it must be to wake up every day and be making Doctor Who. Well, one thing that I was intrigued by, because obviously one question that I always get, what's your favourite moment on set? I'm intrigued by because obviously a lot of your days are probably going to be in offices, in edit suites and offices, and probably not as much time on the actual set. Do you have any moments that stick out in those rooms, those like corridors and rooms where people are doing all of the background work of making Doctor Who? Do you have any days where you go, oh, that was a great day, or a really fun moment from maybe the edit suite where something clicked together or something like that?
Yeah, there's so many actually because I think which ones instantly when you ask me that, I mean, I think the first read through we did, so there was for episode 1 for The Woman Who Fell to Earth, we did a read through. There's an official read through in front of about, I don't know how many people. It was filmed, and there's probably behind the scenes footage of it, and where Jodie's first saying, "I am the Doctor," and all that stuff. And it was huge, and it was really buzzy and really exciting. But we'd also done a secret read through, just me, Jamie Childs, and the cast, including Sharon, a few days earlier in a hotel room in London. And the very first photo we put out of the four of them together in a corridor.
I remember the photo.
Yeah, so that was taken that day when we had a secret read through, and they all met for the first time. Mandit, Brad, Tosin, Sharon, Jodie, and Jamie Childs, and we just did it in a room and read it to ourselves, because I just thought, I don't want everybody to have to do this in front of a huge crowd and all the brand people and all the execs and all channel controllers and all this sort of stuff in a big empty studio for the first time. So it was like we had an informal, wonderful read through. So that was a great one. I can remember there's a few read throughs I remember. I remember the first read through for Rosa, sitting next to Mark Tonderai, and Shandy Clark read in Rosa, and we just looked at each other at the end of that and went, "Oh, okay, this is special." You could feel it in the room in a way generally you can't with read throughs. That was really extraordinary. And the same when we were doing Fugitive of the Jadoon, when Joe Martin came in and for the first time said, "I'm the Doctor," was just a very, very small room, and it just felt really thrilling. And I think Stefan Morris was reading in Jadoon, and it was just really exciting. But often it would be tone meetings where everybody presents their ideas. So the costume ideas, the makeup ideas, the monster designs, those were the best days, because you're basically sitting at a table in a big room. And obviously you'll have seen tone meetings on the behind the scenes footage. It's like loads of geniuses presenting you with insane, wonderful, brilliant ideas, just showing you how they are exceptional craftspeople, exceptional artists. Those are the delightful days when, and also sometimes where you write something in a script, you go, "I know we can't do that," and somebody goes, "No, we can. I'll tell you how we'll do it." They're also the heartbreaking days where you have to go, "Oh yeah, that scene." I always remember there's like a scene at the end of The Woman Who Fell to Earth, the script, where once Tim Shaw is sent back to his own world, there's supposed to be a scene where you go back to his world and there's thousands of Stenza, and he's come back and he's just left on the floor and he's humiliated. And I was like, that's a great, and it was like, we couldn't afford that in the budget. And so, you have both, but then all of those things where you just first see that costume and the mask all happening together, and and also the big day for me, that was like the very early ones, round about Halloween, when we first started filming in 2017. Is that right? Yeah, it probably is. Was just with two massive cranes, and it's like, I still remember watching Jodie go up onto the crane for the first time and how delighted she was. She was like, "I'm just about to do a massive stunt and be on top of the crane," and it's like, there was just so much energy and delight.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear, and how, I mean, obviously, it must be hard leaving the show behind. Obviously, I know that it's quite well documented. You sort of decided to do 3 series and out, and made that sort of pact with Jodie.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a reason. It was just a domestic reason, because I knew my kids were having exams, and it was fixed in time. And I just thought, I can't not be around. It's not fair on them. It's not fair on my wife. We couldn't, and it all got a bit, it got very close to the wire because of the pandemic. So, but yeah, it was always like, okay, if you're going to take this job, this is where you got to be out by, and Jodie had her own reasons, for that as well.
Yeah, of course. And leaving it behind, is there now an element of liberation? Because obviously one of the reasons why we're here is to speak about Death at the White Hart.
Yeah.
Which is something entirely new for you. Obviously, you've written a novel, a wonderful thriller novel. I actually listened to the audiobook.
Oh, did you?
Oh, I did. With Jessica Gunning. And she's fantastic. Obviously, massive these days. Obviously, moved on very much since Partners in Crime, where she, exposed it into fat monsters. Yeah, I listened to the audiobook and I absolutely loved it. Again, sort of harkening back to my love for whodunits, which obviously for you came from Agatha Christie, for me probably came from you, from
I love
Broadchurch, and I thought it was fantastic, and it was just lovely to see you, like I said again, shift from the world of Doctor Who so naturally back into this sandbox of, you know, whodunits are such a staple, and there's obviously staple things within them, and I love the way you play them in Broadchurch and here. Where did the idea for it come about? When did you think, I'm going to write a book?
Yeah, well, I had offers during Broadchurch, and I wanted to try it then, but I was doing season 2 of Broadchurch, then 3, then straight into Doctor Who, so there was just no chance. And so coming out of Doctor Who, I very much had a bucket list of things I wanted to do, and I wanted to do things I hadn't done before. That was really important to me, because the great thing about Doctor Who is every episode you're doing something you haven't done before, really. Mm-hmm. You're going to a new world, you're going to a historical era, you're working with the actors, or you're just doing something, or a type of story. So coming out, it's like, how do you, first of all, you don't have to be working at such a pace. That's nice. But then, but creatively, it was like, well, what can I do that isn't going to be replicating that or feel lesser than doing 11 episodes where we're just going to all sorts of different things. And so it really felt the right time. I really wanted to have a go at doing a novel just to see whether I could do it. And then I started having the idea for it. I wanted also, number one, I wanted to work in a genre I loved. I think murder mysteries as novels are particularly satisfying. They're really delightful. You're very participatory as a reader. You want to be turning the pages as quickly as possible. That always feels really exciting. I think the big thing for me was also writing one that had the classic tropes of a murder mystery set in a village in the English countryside, but was set now and was about people's lives now. The fact that, the people who are involved, it's a pub landlord from a village that can no longer support 2 pubs. There's suspects who are like, one's a kind of Amazon style delivery driver. Somebody runs an Airbnb. There's somebody who's staying in the village under a Ukrainian home for refugees, and things like that felt just really super important to me, because the world has changed so much even since I did Broadchurch.
It felt so, you wouldn't think so, because Broadchurch ages very well. I rewatched it last year and I thought it was fantastic. But, how much modernization needs to be done even just from then, like you said, is crazy, because the world is completely different. But I think that really comes across. It's a lovely modern twist on those old whodunits. And you had me guessing until...
And did you guess? Did you get it?
No, it was, I can't claim.
No, you can, no spoilers.
I can't claim that I guessed, because it was very much with Broadchurch. It's sort of a throw enough shit, something will stick, because I was like, it was probably a fleeting theory amongst about 15 that were constantly going around in my head. But I will tell you that I cheered at the end of that chapter, when things obviously start to come to light. I went, yes, oh God, yes, of course it is, and it just everything started threading together, and then I was like, oh, this is genius. So yeah, I very much loved it.
I'm so pleased. That's great. You're one of the first readers, and you have to try to play fair, I think, by your readers, so that you can pick it up. But
Yeah, I'm very, very honoured, and obviously you put Jessica Gunn through her paces in terms of a variety of accents, but she's got to whip quite a few accents out the bag, but she does them all wonderfully. She's very good.
I'm really glad you listened to the audio, because it's a great piece of casting. And when her name came up, both myself and the guys at Penguin were like, that's great. And she hadn't done one before, and so it was a real coup for us to get her. And I saw her recording it, and she's just amazing, and so perfect for that book, because she's funny. She's she can just do so much. I'm really pleased, and I think hopefully you can feel the joy of writing the novel within the execution of it. I loved it, and it's like you could be really cheeky with the Doctor Who-y Broadchurchy cliffhangers. Hopefully every chapter ends on what's going to happen next.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, I very much enjoyed it, and I'd urge anybody who's listening to go out. Obviously, by the time this comes out, it will be available. So, yeah, go out and buy the book. And if you're a fan of an audiobook, get the audiobook because yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed it. It's consumed my life for the better part of 3 days. To be honest, just doing every household job, but with Jessica Gunning telling me about murders in my ears the entire time. We have a few features to attend to.
Yes.
Obviously, the first of which we've got a few. There's an extra one in here that I've had to include because I couldn't not, but we'll get to that a little bit later on.
Okay.
We're going to speed run a little bit because we've got quite a lot to get through, and
I'm
aware that a lot of people ask a lot of questions. But first of all, the first feature that we're going to go to is that lovely, lovely shelf, and we're going to see what Chris Chibnall wants to put in the DVD collection.
By the power of Grayskull.
The Unicorn and the Wasp or Love and Monsters?
Which one do you think I'll prefer?
No, I mean, which one do you want to watch first?
You are pulling my leg.
So, for any new listeners, the DVD collection is a collection of stories submitted by all of my wonderful guests that sort of are quintessential elements of Doctor Who, maybe something that means a lot to them, or maybe just something that is just, this is good shit, basically. Chris, for the first time ever, we've got somebody submitting to the DVD collection who has stories in the DVD collection already.
I'm very honoured.
Is lovely. But I would love to know, what story would you like to put in the DVD collection?
Could I put two? Can I be really cheeky, or are you going to have to judge? Because I have written and I've showrun. I mean, come on, Josh, help me out, because I can't choose between two, and I'll explain why.
I couldn't possibly say no. But go on, yeah, go on. Okay. I'm in charge. I can do what I like. Yeah, go on.
Right. Or maybe the person who comes after me can't have any, and I've just taken their slot.
Yeah,
you can blend. Yes, sorry. I would love to put. I definitely want to put Seeds of Doom in there. Because I really love Seeds of Doom, all action, Tom Baker, Liz Sladen at their height, Douglas Camfield directing, amazing guest parts, John Challis, horror film, it's that Hinchcliffe, Robert Holmes, Robert Banks Stewart stuff at its height.
Yeah.
Really, really great. And also a great, it's one of those stories you feel, we would refilm that now. You could do a Crinoid sequel.
Yeah,
I've always toyed with that a little bit, and I was like, but how are you going to best that original? So I think I really love that, and I was 6 when that went out. So for the 6-year-old in me, I was like, it's one that still stands up. And then the other one is tonally very different, but I find it utterly joyous, and it's one of those stories that for me probably represents my teenage love of Doctor Who, which is Delta and the Bannermen, which I really adore, Delta and the Bannermen. And I think it sometimes I hear that it gets a bit of a tough rap, but it is a joyous piece of Doctor Who. It's not really like any other story. It's really well directed. It's got a sense of madness to it. Sylvester's great in it. Sarah Griffiths is great in it. Bonnie's in it. There's amazing guest cast. And it's just a great story of a fugitive alien being hunted down. And I really love the joy, the energy, the sunshine, the humor, the music. And again, it's one, it's also, I watch it and I'm like, I would love somebody to remake that now with a huge budget. Because some of the things like the kids' costume and stuff like that.
Yeah, the green lady is one that sticks in.
It is, yeah.
It's a strange moment, but I very much enjoyed it when I saw it. I was like, this is great.
So I would love to put that in for its energy and its brio and its joy, and it's very different to Seeds of Doom, which is like a tough military-ish 6-parter. But those two, they represent sort of different quarters of Doctor Who for me. But I love them, and I shared a love with it with my fan friends in the Merseyside local group.
Yes, lovely. Well, why not? You can have them both. I'm feeling generous. You've caught me on a good day. The Seeds of Doom and Delta and the Bannermen are both in the DVD collection wonderfully. Now, the next segment, it's very strange to be introducing this because you wrote these words, the words that titled this segment, which is our correspondence segment.
Oh, yeah.
And in every single episode, we have a little clip from Broadchurch of David Tennant saying, "Bloody Twitter."
Oh, amazing.
For God's sake! Bloody Twitter!
So, bloody Twitter. Well, again, I don't need to tell you. You wrote that. That was you. So,
Yeah, okay. So strange. He delivers it so well, though, doesn't he?
He very much does. Very much does. And I've heard it more than any line in any TV show ever through editing this podcast.
Great.
I'm going to speed run a few questions. I had hundreds of questions.
Let's see how many we can do. Let's see loads.
Yeah, I've picked out a few good ones.
Right.
Catherine Wheeler at Wheel of Cats has asked, I'm absolutely desperate, and I mean dying to know, for 5 years about the boy on the cliff in The Timeless Children playing with the young doctor. Many of my friends and I have theorized that this boy is/represents the master. All good mysteries are left with a little bit of a twinkle of a mystery left in there. But what are your thoughts on this? Was it a very deliberate parallel?
Yes.
Oh, beautiful. There you go. It's confirmed. It is confirmed.
It's not canon, but it could. You can. I agree.
I would say you're if anyone can be an authority on canon.
I disrupted enough of it. But yeah. I mean, it had to be because you feel like that. Yeah.
Lovely. Oh well, that's wonderful to have this confirmation. And then Dom at Dom to Who, another friend of the show. Hi Chris. Hi Josh. I hope you're both doing well. I'm going to be the annoying person with a preface to a question. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm studying gender-based violence in online fandoms for my PhD. And the topic was directly inspired by the backlash following Jodie's casting. The few but pervasive negative reactions outraged me so much that I decided to study the phenomenon to find a way to destroy it. Bold move, I know. I'm curious, what makes you the proudest about going against the grain and casting not one but 2 women to play the Doctor during your time as showrunner?
What makes me proudest? It's not really about me being proud, because it's like my job was as a gatekeeper, but it's like it's on Jodie and Joe to actually, it's on their shoulders to do that. So I think they are amazing. They're amazing actors and they're amazing people. I thought they're just both awesome doctors, and that's all that mattered in the way. And the way you prove people wrong is by being brilliant. And Jodie Whittaker and Joe Martin are completely brilliant. You only have to see the outpouring of affection for them within the fandom and also in the world, and the deluge of messages I got when it was announced Jodie was leaving and around the power of the Doctor. It's just like I could not be proud of being the showrunner that cast them, but I can't take any credit for their brilliance. That's all on them. And by doing that, then somebody like Dom does that. It's like it's how you answer those criticisms, really, because they're nonsense. And actually, I just come back to the thing that Jodie said herself. She's the only actor ever to have played the Doctor who had 2 hearts when she was pregnant, filming on the TARDIS. Yeah, it's like all of the others just faking it.
She went full method.
She really did.
Full
yeah, I hadn't expected that from her.
Yeah. Richard, Clever Dick Films, another friend of the show. Thanks so much for steering the show through the tumultuous times of COVID and for helping to definitely prove that there is space for all in the Doctor Who universe. One thing that struck me at the time was how excited and enthusiastic the 13th Doctor was about science and explaining it to her companions.
Yes.
Was this a conscious decision, or do you think it might stand out more because it's rarer to see a female character evangelize about science fiction in television dramas?
That's a really good question. I don't know, that may well be the case, but I also wanted to be really direct about it and to have the Doctor say those things and to go, there's that, even just when she's saying science in Demons of the Punjab, when they've rigged something up, and it's but yeah, that's why I wanted her to build her own Sonic That was really important to me because it's like she's a great engineer. She's a great thing. You know, she ends up fixing Vinder's ship in the end of The Power of the Doctor. It's also why I wanted to bring Tesla in and to do a proper story about a great scientific pioneer. Yeah, it was very, very deliberate because it's really great at dealing with sort of artsy historical figures. But I also wanted to go, there are great scientists and sciencey stories. So yeah, totally deliberate. Always wanted it to be front and center.
Yes, perfect. And Eamon Longman, with Big Finish now beginning to delve into 13's era, is there anything in specific from that era that you'd be interested in seeing them tackle? And how does it feel to see characters continue on post the era wrapping up? Because I know you've sort of had some slight involvement in that. And I know you've had discussions with people at Big Finish about, you know, where the Fugitive Doctor adventures and the 13th Doctor adventures are going to head to. How does that feel?
It's lovely because I mean, how many things do you write and then they just get taken on, and those characters that you've created, even within the bigger umbrella of Doctor Who, that they keep living and then other writers write for them and change them and utilize them. It's a real honor, and that people really want to listen to those things. So yeah, I love it, and I love what they've been doing, and I really have to continually. So Nick Briggs lives very close to me, and we occasionally go out drinking, and every time I have to say I'm not going to write a Big Finish about those people, but every time after 2 pints, I'm like, oh, I'm so tempted, and you know, we'll do a Carvanista series, and we'll do all of those things.
Because I know, and obviously when you're immediately leaving the show, the last thing that you want to think about is going back. But now we're a little bit removed from it because, you know, obviously, I mean, Russell's gone back in a way that no one really
gone back as well. It's all well, they're all on pieces of elastic, isn't it?
I mean, would you obviously? I would assume that the answer to returning as showrunner would be no, but maybe that's different.
It would be no.
No. But how do you feel about either returning to write for the show or even, you know, a Target novel? Obviously, we mentioned Terrance Dicks earlier. How would you feel about that?
Maybe one day a Target novel. Yeah, that would be nice. I've got to write another novel under my current book deal first, and then we're doing the TV series of Death of White Hart. But
of course you are. Yeah, that's very exciting.
No, I mean, I just feel like we had such a special time, and yes, there were points when it was like really challenging with the pandemic, but it wasn't any less wondrous, and it wasn't any less wondrous on our final day than it was on the first day. In fact, those 2 bookend days were incredible, and it's okay for things to be a point in time, and for that to be just the era, and to do that, and I'm really happy with that. And we did so much and did so many extraordinary things, and I'm just super happy with what we did. And I also think it's really important for Doctor Who to keep being new. That's what the 13th Doctor's era was all about. So it's like new voices, new people coming in. I mean, it's amazing Russell and Stephen are still writing for it, so I don't say that as in it, they should be doing it. They absolutely should. They're brilliant. But no, I'd be taking up a slot for a new writer, and I don't want to do that. And also, it's like, I've done a lot of episodes of Doctor Who. It's enough.
Yeah. And last question. Ben Williams on Blue Sky has said, are you aware of any of the memes, and what's your favourite? I think one thing in particular that went around, which is Evil Dan.
I was, actually.
Are you aware of Evil Dan?
I'm aware of Evil Dan, and because Joe in our because we were still in post, I think, on the final episode when the season was going out. So yes, Joe in our post team showed me that, and that was amazing. It
was incredible. What a time to be alive. What's the point in being alive?
Evil Dan, you know, it's like
Well, like I said, we've tried to get in as many questions as we can, but there's so many came in. I really tried to cherry pick a few. But I also,
though, really interesting.
They were, but I had to try and cram in this feature, and I am so shameful for doing this. There is a feature which sprang up actually during Flux, which is an occasional feature on the show. Which is a little quiz, and I had to do it because it is affectionately named after your good self.
Oh my
Quiz Chibnall.
Oh my God.
So I had to do Quiz Chibnall with Chris Chibnall.
Wow.
Obviously, it was very nearly Christopher Eccleston, but Quiz Chibnall won out.
Nice.
Had to be done. So I'm going to give you a very quick speed run. I've got a few quiz questions.
Whoa.
And which is quite harsh because they're all about your stories.
Oh
So
no!
I'm hoping that you're
5 years.
I know.
It's been. Do you know? I started on that job in like 8 years ago now, so it's
Yeah,
like
it's been a long time.
I'm not going to do well on this. Okay, go on then, Joe.
Well, I'll give you the first one.
Yeah.
What are the first lines spoken in your first Doctor Who story, 42?
I have no idea. You know, that's now. I wrote that 18 years ago.
Wow.
I would. It's the scene on the TARDIS, probably.
It is, yeah.
Between the Doctor and Martha. Well, I don't know. No idea.
I'll tell you, it's There We Go, Universal Roaming.
He's
Just after he's done the little
setting
trick
up
with
the plot
phone.
points. Yeah.
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 In Spyfall Part 1,
Yeah.
a secret agent is killed on a flight, but where is the flight going to?
Oh, is it? Oh, I can tell you one of the actors in that scene is Will Ely, but I can't. Is it going to Tokyo?
Correct.
Come on, because I think I wrote that in ADR.
Bang on. This is quite a funny question. How many UK prime ministers were there between the airing of The Woman Who Fell to Earth and Power of the Doctor?
I think about 94, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
So there was it between The Woman Who Fell to Earth and Power of the Doctor. Is it 3 or is it 4?
It's 3.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
3. Well done.
Yeah.
Because Rishi Sunak became prime minister 3 days after Power of the Doctor, so it was very nearly 4.
No.
Very nearly, which would have smashed the previous record.
I was going to say, and there's like another Jodie Whittaker achievement. She with 3 prime ministers. Come on.
Yes, exactly. And I'm going to give you one last question.
Oh, go on then.
One last question. This is make or break. And
Oh no.
you know, I didn't write this question. Technically,
I love how you're What?
as of 2025, who currently has the most UK number ones? The Beatles or Elvis?
That's got to be the Beatles, isn't it now?
I'm afraid you're incorrect.
Oh.
Still Elvis. It is still Elvis. I thought that's a spanner in the works, that, because the Beatles have technically had another number one since then. They've had Now and Then came out, but unfortunately, Elvis still takes the crown. So if you were on that ship,
that's
it'd have been burnt to a crisp.
Yeah, I wouldn't have lasted long on that ship anyway.
No, definitely not the full 42. I doubt I'd have lasted 42 seconds. 50%. It's not bad. And
it's not bad.
The entire feature is named after you. So by honorary anyway, without having to ask any questions. You are the owner of the Quiz Chibnall crown. It's your crown to give out, really.
It's an honorarium rather than an achievement, though, isn't it? Let's be honest. Like an honorary doctorate.
It is at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We're coming very close to the end of the show. And we've got one last feature, which is one that's very close to my heart. It is, of course, the Corridor of Fame.
Have you ever been limited by who you were before?
One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back.
Our lives are different. Anybody knows this. That's the exciting
Dear Sarah Jane?
Do I have the right?
Some people's small, beautiful events is what life is all about.
In the nursery compared to us. 10 million years of absolute power. That's what it takes to be really
Every great decision creates ripples. Like a huge boulder dropped in a lake.
But it was a childish dream that made you a doctor. You dreamt you could
No more.
I'm not just the time. I'm the last of the time. It just disappears, doesn't it? Everything you are gone in a moment, like breath on a mirror.
I do what I do because it's right. Because it's decent. And above all, it's kind.
Love abides in the face of everything.
Now, the Corridor of Fame, again, for any new listeners, is a corridor in which my guests submit wonderful people from the world of Doctor Who to be adorned in the corridor, like a Hall of Fame, essentially. So Chris, I'm very intrigued. Who would you like to join those famous names that are already hung up in the Corridor of Fame?
I actually found this very easy. because
Lovely.
there's somebody who's not in there who absolutely should be in there, and it's Hutcho, who is Mark Hutchings, who was the gaffer on 144 episodes of Doctor
Who
since the show came back in 2005. So he has been there every day with the camera department, sorting out the lights, sorting out the camera, and he is the most
single episode
delightful human being. But he is has been the beating heart of Doctor Who since 2005. And when you talk about an unsung hero, Hutcho is that. So you talk about you talk to any director, you talk to any actor, you talk to Jodie about Hutcho.
Yeah.
He was every episode that you love in the modern Doctor Who era. Up to and think I don't know if he's working on it, Bad Wolf, but up until we left Rothlock, he was there and he loved it. It was a point of pride to him, and he is brilliant at his job. Go and look him up on IMDb. But he is an absolute unsung emperor of Doctor Who, and things would not have got on screen without him.
I'm going to be throwing out an email, because that is the kind of person that you want on this show.
Yeah.
Is someone with that many credits at Doctor Who. Well,
and they've got a lot of stories that nobody else has.
I can imagine. Well, what a beautiful entry. That's a really, really lovely entry. And I think that sums it all up really, because like you said, it's an unsung hero of Doctor Who deserves to be honoured. So that's a lovely entry. Thank you for that. And unfortunately, we've run out of time. It's been an absolute joy speaking to you. I mean, on a personal level, like I said, it's 20 years this week since I first watched Doctor Who.
Amazing.
Ever.
Happy anniversary to you.
Thank you very much. I mean,
or whatever we call it nowadays.
What a way to celebrate it. I mean, if you could have told that little lad like 20 years ago, growing up not far from where he grew up in Southport.
Oh, you're from Southport?
Yes.
Lee Mack's from Southport as well.
Lee Mack is also from Southport. Yeah, I was like, oh, there's a little connection there.
Southport massive in Doctor Who.
I think exactly. But yeah, just if you'd have told him that 20 years later he'd be chatting to all of these wonderful people, including yourself, he would absolutely be pinching himself. And it's been a joy, because even aside from Doctor Who, like I said, Life on Mars, Broadchurch, United, at Torchwood, it's very much been a massive part of my formative years. So thank you for chatting to me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure.
I have one last question, if we can squeeze it in.
Yeah, go on.
Just before we go, in a sentence, what does Doctor Who mean to you?
A force for good.
Beautiful. That is the perfect answer. Well, Chris Chibnall, please send anybody wherever you want. You can plug whatever you want. This is your time. And yeah, thank you.
It's my pleasure. Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for listening to the audiobook of Death at White Hart. Everybody go out and buy it now. Go out and buy it.
Yeah, go buy Death at the White Hart. It's a wonderful listen. And thank you everybody at home for listening. Thank you for hyping this up. It's been very, very exciting. And
thanks for the great questions, everybody who sent them in, because they were really especially that timeless child one. I've forgotten about that. That's really good.
Yeah. Yes, very good question. Well, yeah, thank you once again, Chris. I'm going to let you go because I know you've got to rush off.
My pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, Josh. Thank you.
Yeah.
And good luck with talking to Hutcho.
Yes, absolutely. Fingers crossed I can get him on. Hello, you lovely lot. A little bit unusual. This is me a couple of weeks after the fact, back to do my outro spiel. I'm very aware that the main event has left the building, but if you can stick around for this last minute or so, I'd very much appreciate it. Firstly, I mean, I really, really hope you all enjoyed the Chris Chibnall interview that you've just watched or listened to. Speechless. What an incredible experience. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's ever listened to Who Knew, ever supported the podcast, ever shared anything, ever left a review, ever subscribed, because honestly, it's just led me to some incredible experiences over the years. Obviously, it's never been about money. I've never made a penny from this podcast, but what I have done is had some really fucking cool experiences, and speaking to the one and only former showrunner Chris Chibnall is one of those. I really hope you enjoyed it. It was such fun to record, and Chris was so nice and so generous with his time. And also, I'm aware that this may lead new people to come to Who Knew. So, I want to sell the idea of, this is a regular show. There are loads of episodes. I've interviewed people like Sophie Aldred, Katie Manning, amazing people within the fandom as well. Douglas McKinnon, Robert Shearman, over the years. And if you enjoyed this episode, I'd urge you to stick around because I've got some fantastic guests coming up in the future. And yeah, I'd love you to go and explore the back catalogue and stick around. In terms of where you can find the podcast, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is. Please follow us on there, subscribe so you don't miss any episodes in the future. And leave us a review while you're there as well, because that always really helps us out. You can also find us on all the social media channels, so at Who Knew Podcast on Twitter, same on Blue Sky, but obviously just with the added bit on the end. whoknewdwpod on Instagram, much more active on there now as well, and TikTok as well. I believe that's Who Knew Podcast as well. And you can always email the show, whoknewdwpod@gmail.com. Like I said, follow us on all of those platforms as well, because it's where you can keep up to date with who's coming on the show in the future and get your chance to ask some questions to some really, really cool people. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you do stick around. And once again, thank you all for listening. It means the world. Thanks for listening to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. You can find us wherever you get your pods and on YouTube. Please give us a like, share, subscribe, and a review if you can. It really helps us out. Massive thanks to Oliver Chenery for the Corridor of Fame intro, and the Sononauts for lending their cover of the Doctor Who theme to be the theme for the podcast. Who Knew is a New Kid Media production.